delighted to say here on Open Goal we are joined by the Northern Ireland manager Michael O'Neill on my right hand side. We're also joined by the former Celtic and Scotland striker Kris and on my far left the former Rangers, Aberdeen, Dundee United and Scotland striker Billy Dodds. Gents, thanks for joining us.
Welcome.
For the next hour we're going to have a blare about the World Cup, also talking about our own managers and coaches up here, and things that we can learn with the domestic game just about to start too. For the World Cup, Billy, what did you take out of it, particularly the way that goals were scored, possession was given up in order to play to a game plan?
I think a lot of teams without superstars realised they had to get a sort of shape about them and make sure that they were nice and compact. But I feel as if when you look at France, I said it before the tournament, I felt as if the teams that come through at the four have got both sides. They've got superstars and they've got a balance of knowing how to defend, players working really hard, keeping the system. I think discipline's a huge word as well, and usually find that the teams in Germany went out. I thought they'd be one, but France, having both sides of it, superstars and hard-working players who form a really good shape and good discipline, came to the fore and eventually went on and won it, and didn't start the tournament well, but certainly came through at the end. Did it show that, Kris, a real the tacticalness of certain coaches?
Especially in the final. I think first half you saw a team that were defended very, very deep, almost 11 people behind the ball, tried to let Croatia attack them. And when they finally did get possession, they got put under pressure by the three Croatian centre-forwards and ended up giving away possession in their own half. They came out second half and completely changed the shape, went a little bit further up the park, the pace of Varane in the centre defence. You always got that reassurance that any ball over the top that you've got cover there. So they tried to play a higher game, higher press, try and win the ball back higher, and it gives you likes of Mbappe a lot more opportunities in the final third to win the ball there rather than starting from his own half.
In terms of set pieces, Michael, from very early in the tournament, whether it was Ronaldo's free kick for Portugal against Spain or from corner kicks, headers coming out. I know at Northern Ireland part of your success has been built a lot on set pieces. Just how important are they?
I think it's for me, when you looked at the tournament, there was a lot of tight games. I mean, I think we only saw the first game, the 5-0 game, Russia, and England's defeat of Panama were really the only two teams where teams got a severe beating, and so the set pieces were crucial in nearly all of the other games. The amount of games I think that the first goal was scored from a set piece was very interesting as well. And for the smaller teams, for the teams that, like as Billy touched on there, that are organised, are structured and defend deep, set pieces become that more bit important as well. And we used it to great effect with Northern Ireland. And the thing that I always say to our players is something like, when you're having to play that way and you're having to defend it, when you get a set piece, it's probably the only time in the game that you're going to have 4 or 5 your own men in their box. You're never going to get 4 men in their box from general play, very rarely. So your goals will come from a counter-attack, or they'll come from having the opportunity to do something from a set piece. And we saw that throughout the tournament. It kept teams in the game who maybe didn't have a lot of possession. It gave them a foothold in the game as well. And I think. But one thing it did, it was right through even the good teams. Even the final, as Kris touched on, like the first goal's a set piece. That opens up the game for France, and Croatia's equaliser comes off a set piece. So it's very prevalent in the modern game, particularly in international football.
We could see. Do you think there was a knock-on effect from particularly the latter stages of the Champions League, where there's some high-scoring games, and that kind of kicked into the World Cup a bit? Is it part of it the fact that maybe the art of defending is not as good as it used to be, or what do you put that down to?
Yeah, I did some games for UEFA in the Champions League and did like a technical advisor role on it, and it was interesting for me to see how the teams play. Like, people talked about Germany, for example, in the World Cup, how they were so poor defensively. I don't necessarily think they were poor defensively. They just play with such an open style of play. The fullbacks are so high. Very rarely now, with the big teams, do you see them play with a back four? They don't play as a back four. They play with 2 centre-backs and 2 full-backs away up the pitch. So basically they try to defend with 2. Germany at times actually tried to defend with 1. And they played, like, for a German team at times, it was kamikaze football, really. So I think that, there's a lot of 1v1 defending in the Champions League as well, later in the competition. And you saw at times, as I say, high-scoring games. You know, the Juventus Madrid game, it was a good example of that. The Bayern Munich Madrid game as well in Madrid. Like the defences were so open. I'm watching the game and I'm watching Marcelo play at left back for Real Madrid, and he does no defending in the game at all, none at all. And you just think that, you know, it's a part of the modern game, I think, where, you know, depending on how you want to set your team up, what's your philosophy as a coach, whether you're prepared to play like that. But, you know, we did see teams as Kris talked, that team that defends deep, more rigid as a back four, you know, that is still in the game. But I think it's based on, as a coach, you know, you have an assessment of what level of possession you'll have in the game.
Billy, when you watch like the latter stage of the Champions League and then some of the defending in the World Cup, as a striker and as a viewer, you must be delighted at seeing goals and entertainment, but if you put your coach's head on, you must sometimes be pulling your hair out at some of the defending.
Total opposite. And then you have to look at the competition and what level of team you've got in that competition, whether it's the World Cup. And you look at your Germanys, you would never have labelled that at Germany, that they would ever have done that. But this new modern style of football, where the full-back's high up, your two centre-halves, if you've got to, Michael said one, but your two centre-halves have got to be able to handle anything coming their way. And when you see players like Mbappe and the speed they've got, some of them can't. Coaches head on, if you've got a team that's not favourites, then you're going to be structured. You're going to try and keep that back four in place and go back to maybe the old school of coaching where if one full-back's released, the other one tucks round. But this modern day, really good teams, they've got their full-back so high. And
You've got
Kris talked about Varane, who is a speed merchant. He can handle it, but it was proven over the Champions League and the World Cup that some centre-halves couldn't handle it. Boateng was all over the place. They'd never labelled that.
Against Germany, like, one pass can get you out against Germany. Mexico did that. They were able to find that one pass that got them out, and suddenly they're 1v1 against Hummels, 1v1 against Boateng. And you're right, these teams now, that we wouldn't have associated that with a German team, that basically the wide players want to play on the inside. You know, they want to overload the midfield. The full-backs are high, and it puts a huge responsibility on the centre-backs to be able to defend. And I think at times it's a little bit unfair on the centre-backs as well, because they're not defending against the centre-forward. They're actually defending against someone that's running from a deeper area that's coming on the counter-attack, and it's more difficult for them as well.
Would it be a wide man's dream, Kris, now, when you look at that?
If I had pace, yeah, it'd be brilliant.
It's good for attackers. It must be they're going to create for you.
Looking at Germany's games, I thought they were naive in terms of defending with 1 and 2, and spoke about discipline at the start of the programme there. They didn't have any sort of defensive discipline, and almost like we're too good to be working on the tactical side of things in terms of defensive. Almost like we've got a free rein here, you know, we ex-world champions, that we're just going to do what we want and we're going to do everything with the ball. But as Michael will say, defending without the ball is a huge part of the game.
It'd be interesting to ask Michael, if you were in the qualification campaign, you come up against a lesser team, would you expect your full-backs to be high? And then obviously if you've made it to finals, you start playing against a better calibre. What do you do with your back four? Do you play them high because it's modern, or do you go, no, we're a team that's expected?
We're a bit more traditional, to be fair. I just think that the art of being a full-back has changed. I still like my full-backs to be able to play as full-backs. We've had to manufacture players and play them in there. Chris Brunt, for example, played left-back for us in a lot of the games as well. But we don't encourage our players to be in situations where if we lose the ball, our full-backs are in positions where there's no recovery. That's what happens with Germany. There's no recovery for some of the teams, you know. So we have a bit more of a balance, a bit more traditional. And, you know, we did see teams play in the tournament as well. We saw Uruguay play 4-4-2.
Yeah.
You know, 2 really good centre-backs, 2 really good centre-forwards. It was a basic style of play, but it was effective. And, you know, you wonder, had Cavani not been injured, you know, that was a huge blow to them because they don't obviously the personnel to come in. But, you know, I think when you look at France got the balance right. France they didn't overcommit. Deschamps was criticised, I think, in the early part of the tournament, particularly in the French media, but he didn't overcommit. They had the right balance between, you know, attack and defence. Very rarely did you see, I think, in too many games, France, suddenly it's 3v2 against. They're getting counter-attacked. They didn't allow themselves to get counter-attacked. They had control of the situation. And at times, because they had so many really good individual players, they were almost criticised because people expected so much of them going forward. But he managed to keep the reins on them a little bit at times.
We're used to seeing a French team that are flair and full-flowing and brilliant to watch. But when you've got, especially in the middle of the park, Kante, who's just a machine that can run 14, 15 kilometres every game and he covers every blade of the grass, you've got that reassurance in the middle of the park. Gives opportunities for your Mbappes, your Griezmanns, your Giroux to do their bit in the final third. But like I said, going back to the defensive side, I think back four for France were superb. They knew exactly where to be, who to pick up, and defending crosses from Croatia, I thought they had a perfect line and got, neutralised Mandzukic very, very well. But going back to about being in possession, when you're thinking about fullbacks going forward, managers that say that you're more vulnerable when you have got possession because you're so committed to try and play this modern way of getting your fullbacks forward, your wingers inside, get your number 10. If you give the ball away, you're almost there as a sitting duck for a counter-attack. And I think France probably went into that thinking that they're going to probably give a little bit more possession away in the middle of the park with Rakitic and Modric. But when we do win the ball, play wide, because I think Mbappe on the right-hand side was a little bit more advanced. The boy on the left was a little bit more tucked in. There's your out ball and get away. And the amount of dribbles that he got through, and I think he was nearly involved in 4 of the goals.
Also the counter attack really, wasn't it? The Argentina game and stuff like that. They scored a couple of beautiful goals.
That's a good point, because I've always been brought up to, even as a player, and then you become a coach, and then it's what level of team you've got again, where you trigger your fullback. Whereas when you've got a good centre halves, you can stand your fullbacks high, and a lot of teams did that. Michael spoke about it. They play practically just before the halfway line, the 2 fullbacks, and most of the good teams. But we were always taught, right, okay, when your winger tucks in, if it's a 4-4-2 or whatever, or your men like Kris did come inside and pick up those pockets, that's when your fullback would go. But nowadays it's just stand them high early. It's incredible.
Are you surprised the amount now of those top coaches, top nations are, the way they're just sort of willing to surrender possession? We were talking about France, a lot of them just seem, whereas before, the stats you wanted to see, 65, 35, 70, 30, it was about
good
stats
teams,
about winning it,
Yeah, pummeled teams, I know what you mean. But Deschamps, I think, when you look at him, what type of player he was, kind of installed that into his team. The boys spoke about it, how they started the tournament wasn't great, just had enough, built confidence, not letting the reins off too early, make sure you qualify. But what he did when he got to the final was have that, right, you have the ball, we've got the pace to catch you on the break. Not so much Giroux, but Griezmann and Mbappe were incredible. But we'll just sit there, we've got solid defenders, with a nice solid back four, and when we get the ball we can spring, and boy have we got the players to do that. So
I think you've got to take into consideration as well that these players, I think it's almost impossible to play a high pressing game every 4 or 5 days, and these are top teams, and if you're constantly trying to put teams under pressure and you're playing the world's best players, they'll play in that heat, and then you're travelling, you have to take into consideration the players. Right, if we do get through this game, what's next? I think you've got to open your mind up to tactical. It's not all about at high press, let's win it there. You've got to be able to flip it. And in the final, that's what Deschamps did. Sat deep, just, covering spaces, and Kante does it superbly. Comes across, blocks a line into the number 10s, into the important players in the final third, but then recognise in the second half, right, we've got a second wind, let's go and put them under pressure and just see what they've got, and you've seen the end result.
On that point, Michael, you've managed a tournament, Euro 2016. Is Kris saying there, was it not always just about the immediate game in front of you? Did you have always one eye on what was coming next in terms of selection and tactics, and how much?
We did a little bit in France, because we played, when we lost Kris Brunt with Cruciate, we didn't naturally have a left back, so we prepared after we qualified to play with 3 at the back. We had 3 centre backs that play in the Premier League, so we prepared to play at 3 at the back. But we knew in the second game against Ukraine we were going to have to change to play with 4 at the back, because they had Konoplyanka and Yarmolenko were their 2 biggest threats in the wide area. So we didn't want to play with 3, and they'd stand with the 2 wide players. So Johnny Evans went and played. We'd set that up. We knew we'd play the second game. But typically it is game to game. Like it is, and it is very much, like the biggest thing I looked at in the World Cup was, like, everyone has an idea of play, and the biggest example of it was Argentina. Sampaoli, 4 years ago we played against Chile, and Sampaoli was the coach, and they were devastating. Like, they could press you all over the pitch. They played out from the back. They played with no fear. They were brilliant, honestly. They were one of the best teams I played against at international level without having... The only 2 stars they had was Sanchez and Vidal. The rest of the players were like Beausejour was at Nottingham Forest, well, you know, someone else that was at Medell was at Birmingham or Cardiff, sorry. And they didn't have household names, but they were brilliant in their system. He wanted to play like that with Argentina, and he didn't have the players to do it. That's why Argentina struggled so much. They couldn't press as high up the pitch, and then they didn't have the legs in the middle of the pitch with Mascherano at 35 playing in China. And that's where, you know, it was interesting for me to see a coach who didn't want to adapt from the way that he's, you know, in his mind, that's how his team should play. And you know, they had the tournament they had as a result of that.
Changing coaches, that's brilliant to lead me on to a question I would ask you. Do you think Joachim Löw should have... Do you think he changed his policy because you saw what Germany was like, you know,
I think
a few
Germany,
years before that, and then suddenly they're all over it? What do you think he changed at all?
Yeah, Germany were like... We played Germany in qualification, and, you know, they were brilliant. You know, they just smother you with the ball. They actually smother you with the ball, and you think, like, if we can get out here, 2 passes can get us out, but you can't get the ball back, and they're great at getting pressure on you high up the pitch as well. But it just didn't happen for Germany. They put themselves under pressure, I think, from the first game, put themselves under pressure. You know, people talked about Timo Werner was going to have a big tournament. He did nothing in the tournament. You know, Thomas Müller did nothing in the tournament. They became very dependent on Kroos. They just seemed to have a lot of players that, you know, didn't adapt to having lost the first game. Like, I still thought Game 3, Germany will beat South Korea, and Germany will be at least in the semi-final. I did the game on television, and I said that on air. So, and then the fact that 90 minutes later they were 2-0 down to South Korea, and Neuer was playing left wing. You know, it was just some of the things. I don't know.
They were forced into that because of that pressure.
They just went crazy a little bit, and sometimes they'll just, you know, it shows you even at the top level how they can lose their way. You know,
you're looking at World Cup winners.
Yeah,
highest experience. You know, you put your goalkeeper in goal and, like you say, just head loss.
I'm just glad to see that you actually made a prediction on
my predictions were terrible.
When they're on the BBC Sky, they don't go into that.
Can't beat sitting in the fence.
I think if you're going to play, if you've got the players and you want to play with your full-backs as high as that, and depending on what your composition in your midfield, play with 3 at the back. I thought Germany would have played with 3 at the back. So, right, well, the 3 centre-halves can defend the width of the pitch rather than 2. And it allows a centre-back, if you've got a good one that can step in, he can still step in. Yep. What happens with Germany is Boateng steps in a lot of times and leaves Hummels. And it's just, the pitch is too big. You're asking one player to defend half the pitch. It's too big. And so that, it surprised me. I thought Germany maybe would have tweaked it tactically and gone with, you know, like whether it's a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2, but they didn't. And obviously it was their downfall.
But you touched on it as a Scotsman. England, quietly about their business, ended up in the semi-finals. Tell me, did you want them to go on and win it, Gareth Southgate and his players?
Having played against them, I think it's historical that, you know, you just didn't want England to win, and it's simple as that. And I still remain the same. I'm a passionate Scotsman.
But were you pleased for them to see them doing?
No, no. But you have to tactically. I think you have to look at it. We were always brought up where your personnel dictates your shape. I'm not so sure that happened with England.
No,
because you know, you've got a right back playing centre half, and don't get me wrong, you know why they played them there, but he played them for the recovery pace. But positionally, defensively, for me, he put them out the tournament because any crosses come in, he couldn't know where the man was.
Kyle Walker.
Kyle Walker, but
I think you're losing the best part of Kyle Walker's game when you play him in that position. I think he's a terrific right full-back, and we've seen him for Manchester City and Tottenham. He's the one that can put a cross in and get back. He's such an athlete, and I think you've lost that. And I don't want to trip you there for the balls in the box and things like that. But it's very, very difficult when you're getting in the wide areas. These balls have to be so precise for one guy in the box. I think it's a tough task for Harry Kane to try and get on the end of things when he's being marked by potentially 2 centre-halves. So I just think it were possession, brilliant for England, kept it all in their own half. Ended up getting forced back when put under pressure to Pickford, and it just seemed like they got put under pressure, play all the way back to the goalkeeper, and then it was a hoof up front to try and get hold of it again. You see, when you play at the top level, especially, you know, international and Champions League games, people aren't afraid to put you under pressure, so you go backwards. That's their trigger, backwards or sideways. Then there's a step, backwards or side, then there's a step. You need to have a centre-half or a goalkeeper that then can play through to eliminate the ones that are pressing you. England never had that. They just looked frightened in possession rather than being a little bit more confident. When it goes back to the goalkeeper, it's not just giving away possession. You have to try and find that extra pass, and they never had that.
They picked Pickford for that, and he tried to play out wide.
But you don't want your goalkeeper playing from 18-yard box trying to pick out diagonals. It's not the way that.
The other one I would say was Sterling, because he plays wide for Man City, and we know he gets in, and he's not a natural goal scorer. He gets in at that back post, and he has scored a few goals. But when you're playing that 3-5-2 system, as England did, where 3-5-1-1 with Sterling in behind, we know why they played Sterling. They played him because he's pacing. It did scare teams.
Yeah.
He saw teams. But when it came to get actually scoring goals, it wasn't natural. You put Hazard there. When he gets in those positions, he's natural. So I can understand why Gareth Southgate did it, and he got good reward. But I can understand what cost them in the end as well, though, because they didn't score. They did score enough goals, but Sterling couldn't score, and Kyle Walker couldn't positionally defend. Now, he's a good defender, 1-on-1. You put him against a rapid winger, that's all day long. But you know what I mean, Michael? Position himself in his box to defend crosses.
England were. I was pleased for England. I was pleased for Gareth Southgate. I thought they did well. People look at the England team. Like, they don't have a natural left back. Ashley Young's playing left wing back. They don't. So I
think if Rose were fully fit, he'd have played.
Maybe played. Again, Shaw has obviously fallen out of the scene. That was the player that they hoped would come through and play there. They didn't. I thought he was brave in his midfield to play with Jesse Lingard in midfield and Dele Alli in midfield with just Henderson. I thought that was brave. If you look at Deschamps, he played with Kante and he played Pogba deeper. He played Matuidi, who's more of a defensive kind of player on the left to allow for Mbappe. They always had little sort of balances in the pitch and how they played. England just at times I felt were possibly a wee bit open. Obviously they're very dependent on Kane, and much was made of their set pieces. They didn't create much through the middle of the pitch, England. They weren't able to create very much through the middle of the pitch, and I think that was, part of their downfall as well. And possession. We talk about possession. For me, teams who have 65% possession. It depends where you have it. Mm-hmm. What area of the pitch have you had that possession? You get teams that play slowly. And you get good teams that can kill you quickly. The Belgians that score, can score off 4 or 5 passes. We always look at our team and say, we're a team, for example, we're never going to have the ball for 20 passes and score. We're going to have it for 5 or 6 to score. And
case in point, Belgium against England, the 3rd and 4th place playoff.
Totally.
Some of the 5 passes, unbelievable.
Their ability to get through the pitch quickly, and that's down to the technical ability of the players, as well. But I thought England did. They probably overachieved. I think, given that the squad that they had. I always think it'd be interesting, Gareth, because. They were 18 minutes from a World Cup final? They're 18 minutes away, and I suppose you look back at the game and think, you always think as a coach, what could you have done? Could you have done anything different? And ultimately, they get done off the goal. But they kind of lost their way. Croatia got on top of them in the second half, and they looked back like an England team of old, where you should say went back to the goalkeeper, Pickford kicked it long, and then they weren't able to really get any. They lost their foothold in the game from being in a really strong position.
You see the centre midfield, that when we mentioned Lingard there and Dele Alli, I think when they're playing club football, when you've got the Herrera, you've got Pogba at Tottenham, you've got Wanyama, you've got Eriksen.
Yeah,
it gives you a licence to.
They're part of a better midfield in their clubs than they are internationally.
And you're expecting Ali and Kane to get that sort of thing, but I don't think Ali or Lingard knew whether they were going to be a number 10 or sit a bit deeper. Are we keeping possession? Are we trying to work off Kane? They were just never that sort of balance, that never sort of free flowing.
It was a wee problem, I think, where it played Dele Alli for him a little bit. I think he didn't really know. He kind of almost like Lingard and Alli played kind of 2 number 10s. Whereas if you look at how Belgium play the system, they play with 2 number 10s and almost 2 6s. Do you know what I mean? They played De Bruyne deeper with Witsel, and then they played Mertens and Hazard in the box that Chelsea play. The same sort of system that Conte played at Chelsea, which gives Hazard that licence. England didn't really have that. They kind of had a 3. That Sterling, as you say, closer to Kane, and at times it just, they didn't have that. I suppose control of the game.
So
control of the game was really
The personnel didn't really dictate their shape. That's what we were always brought up. I was brought up with that, and I still believe in that as a coach. Although you'll try things that might be different, you've got to have that in your mindset. But for me, England didn't, their personnel didn't dictate, and they tried things which worked to a certain extent, but just failed them in the final hurdle.
We've got to ask Kris. Billy made his feelings very clear. As a Scotsman with an English accent who lives in Glasgow, did you want England to win the World Cup? Did you want to go and see them do it?
Yeah, listen, I've been brought up an Englishman. You know, I've got a Scottish family.
Say that now when you're out the international setup. It's okay now, safe.
He knows this has been beaten down south as well.
No, but yeah, my wee boy had a Hurricane top on. Very disappointed when they went out. But again, it was, going what Michael said there, the control. And I think this is something that Scott Brown has brought to the table in the last 12, 18 months, is that game management, the control of knowing when to just settle things down and just keep possession. See, when you're playing in the latter stages of a game like that, there's nothing worse than someone being so comfortable in possession, and just when you're trying to get the ball back and trying to win. I think Scott Brown's added that to his game, and you know, when you've got the likes of Modric and Rakitic, the world-class stars, they knew when to turn the switch, and it was very, very, very impressive watching it. But from England's point of view, just to keep the back three the same all the time. When you're playing against one striker in Mandzukic, I thought they could have put another midfielder, another striker, another wide man, just to give him that little bit more emphasis in the final third, and two just come a little bit narrower, and just, do you know what I mean? Just change it a little bit, just to, you know, three marking one.
Stones was exposed once or twice. But is he the real deal, John Stones?
It went up in my
attributes. Certainly got
I thought
attributes.
he played very well.
He makes
the odd mistake.
He's made mistakes defensively, but listen, Sergio Ramos makes mistakes defensively. You know what I mean? You can see, you know, 160 odd caps for Spain. He's won everything the game has to offer. So that, like, you can't just pick on a mistake while playing. Say, listen, he's weak defensively. John Stones, I think, you know, you look at the goal. The second goal, you know, that put them out of the tournament is a concentration thing. It's almost like the reaction of Mandzukic against, as opposed to the reaction of Harry Maguire and John Stones. The three of them are walking out together. It's such a simple goal. Such a simple goal for them to lose, and that was, you know, I'm sure they'll be disappointed in that. But I thought Stones was good. Again, you know, I've seen him play a lot live for Man City. And you know, he's a massive part of their team because of how they want to play and start the game. That's a huge, and they maybe give him a little bit of license. They'll overlook some of his defensive things. But when you play in that type of possession game that he plays in at City, and they'll find, and I think they've been found out a little bit in the Champions League, and that you have to be able to defend one-on-one then. You know, because you're going to have to. So that'll be the thing in him, and maybe sometimes one-on-one defending, he's a wee bit. He lacks a little bit of physicality at times. I think, like, you get Mandzukic against him, he's strong enough to hold him and push him and, you know, manipulate him a little bit. But for me, I thought overall, you know, he had a good tournament.
It's easy to label the inexperienced one with a mistake, because, as Mike said, the experienced ones make them, but the inexperience and the semi-final caught up with them, because you're right, they didn't organise as they were on their way out, whereas the experience caught them out because Mandzukic is a typical striker.
They actually assumed that Kyle Walker was going to win the header against Perisic. Perisic wanted it more and won the header, and that was basically where the goal came from.
It's incredible with Croatia, because being with the BBC watching Scotland play against them when Robert Snodgrass scored, and Scotland weren't confident going away. And I think Croatia were on their holidays, don't get me wrong, but after seeing them and then seeing them when Scotland played them at Hampden as well, I would never have said in three or 4 years' time you're going to be in a World Cup final. And a lot of the players played then. So there's something happened over the last...
Listen, Scotland were 2 minutes away from beating England.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of bright things happening in Scotland that you can look towards. A lot of young people coming through, good young people. Just need more right backs and less left backs.
I think the thing when you look at Croatia as well was the power in the front line. Like Ribic on one side, Perisic, they're powerful, they're physical. Mandzukic is physical.
They just ran the full length of the pitch.
Perisic was brilliant, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he really was.
And then they've got that flair behind. Like Modric isn't big physically, even Rakitic isn't big physically. They can play with those players in the middle of the pitch, but they've such pace and power in the wide areas and through. And you know, obviously when Mandzukic's through the middle, you know, it made them the team they were.
On that, 43% of all the goals scored in the tournament came from set pieces. And I know, Michael, you've told us, you know, it's not a wee afterthought 5 minutes at the end of a session, let's work on a set piece. You'll spend hours and hours on it with your coaching staff and your players. Is this the way? I mean, they always have been vital, but is it even more so?
Is that including obviously the VAR overturns and stuff like that? Because I thought for a World Cup to be under VAR scrutiny, teams, how they defended from corners and set pieces was
Naive.
absolutely mind-blowing. To say that, you could easily get something reviewed. I mean, people not even looking at the ball, rugby tackling people.
Yeah.
I think Kane's 3 penalties came from him being rugby tackled.
Yeah.
So,
But they didn't. It was funny. They didn't use it all the time in that instance.
No.
You could have looked at every set piece, and you'd find a foul or board. Like there's very few set pieces when the ball comes in the box where there's not, and they didn't use it all the time. But yeah, you're right. Some of the defending, particularly like how Panama tried to defend against England, was a little bit unorthodox. But it was, because despite the percentage of, and we talked about this off air, Mark, like the percentage of goals scored from set pieces, there wasn't much that was really creative. You can't think. England did one where they played it short, flick, went to the back, comes back in, John Stones gets a header. But the rest was really down to quality delivery and obviously the right person attacking the ball.
Yeah.
They didn't, there wasn't as much improvisation for as many goals. And you're right, they were defended poorly. A lot of teams defended set pieces very poorly.
Just on the VAR point you pick up, just to go to the final, the penalty kick just before half time. You think it was a penalty?
no. It's very, very harsh.
I don't think it's as clean cut though as just that's never. A lot of panelists said never. I don't think it was a penalty, but I mean, why did it?
I think VAR puts a seed in your mind.
out?
Because when you see something in slow motion from all these angles, you go, oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm not sure. Oh, yeah, it's a penalty. When you see it in full speed, you wouldn't even know where it hit him. You won't be able to put your mortgage on saying, go on, is it yay or nay?
Yeah.
The fact that you've got 3, 4, 5 different angles, all in ultra slow-mo.
Yeah, because he's walked away and then he's gone back again.
Puts a dart in. But yeah, for
Well,
me,
we've 8 officials now refereeing the game with the 4 in the VAR. The thing that I didn't like about the VAR was when they pull things back for those incidents. I think if the referee gives it and then it's a penalty and he can look at VAR and review it and go, no, it's not a penalty, then that's good. If he misses it, then he misses it. We went out of our chance to go to the World Cup was taken off a bad decision. Now, the referee could have gone to VAR, reviewed that and gone, that's not a penalty kick. I think that, too many of the things where VAR was brought back were for penalty kicks where they were kind of innocuous, the ball had hit someone's hand. Is it deliberate? Is it not deliberate? I think like a lot of them, you look at the one, I think Denmark, got one given against them. The lad actually missed the 3rd game because of it. He got 2 bookings. And, you think, is that really a penalty? And I don't know.
It's the biggest grey area in football.
Yeah. I think
where your hands on wins.
Still got to allow a bit of human error then.
Yeah, I also think people think this is a bit crazy, but I think why do we not just give a free kick in the box? Like we used to do for an obstruction. If it's a handball and we think it's a handball, like a penalty is a very severe, like the game can be decided. Unless it's a blatant, if the ball's going towards a goal or it's, someone punches it or someone does something. But if someone heads it and you jump and it rolls down your arm, which was the case, I think, around Portugal, that was a ridiculous penalty to give. But it almost, at one point in those 2 games, either Spain or Portugal could have gone out of the tournament.
Yeah, the one with Perisic, right, and I don't think it's a penalty either, but he panicked because the guy got the run on him and suddenly the hand was out. It's the only way I can think. The referees looked at it again and thought, right, it's a penalty. Then you see the Jesus one for Brazil. I thought that was a penalty and they looked at it and they said no. And there was a few, but I think debate's good. It's party football. It's never a penalty. Oh, it's a stone wall.
They brought VAR to try and eliminate the.
But I think
it's still
not quite eliminated.
I think it's good when you see how you use it, when the referee gave the penalty for Neymar. Remember, and the shirt, and then he fell back, and then when he went back, so he gave the penalty, and then he goes and looks and goes, well, actually, it's not a penalty. I think that's really good refereeing, and that's good use of VAR. I think sometimes if they miss things, they've missed it. Like the company one. He missed it. He went to it was a penalty. When a defender goes to ground like that, there's wee signs, he's gone to ground. There's a good chance that maybe, there's been contact there as well. But overall, I thought, it was good because there wasn't a goal scored in the tournament that shouldn't have been allowed, for offside or anything like that there. And we didn't have games decided by something like that. As I say, like we went out from a penalty that was given that shouldn't have been a penalty. So that's worse to take than possibly losing to an offside goal or something that wasn't given.
Going back to set pieces, it's huge. I mean, Michael does it. We were at Ross. We've got so many blocks because you put the hours in to study opposition to see what even their setup is for and against.
Yeah.
To try and get the better of them. And
Panama must have gone to Twickenham
we
to
hit
watch
areas. we hit areas, and I'm sure you did as well, because we've got, I've never say what they are, we've got them all written down, but we've got so many blocks to try and free
I can
up
remember
people
all
to
them,
hit an area.
and I still put it in area.
And then you're corner kick.
Yes, it's interesting. You watch the opposition. I always watch the opposition and go, right, that's how they've set up. And then you look at consistently where they end up when the ball comes in the box. And sometimes you see areas, they consistently leave that area at the back post. So if you can get someone into that area, there's patterns that you see.
Outswinger, in-swingers.
Outswingers, totally. You see different things that teams do as well.
Prime example, Celtic, Barcelona. Charlie Mulgrew, Victor Wanyama. Listen, Jordi Alba, this is where he's here. He's 5'0". Just go and edit. Charlie, please, just give me a delivery.
Yeah.
Changes the whole time.
Teams that do zonal, one of the smallest players will always be at the back of the zone, because you don't know where else to put them.
No.
You always put your two biggest boys in the middle of the box.
On the
Germany
post.
were zonal against us.
Is that what they two used to go then, was it?
Probably, you put either on the post or you're at the
blocker
back. You end up at the back of the zone.
Get your
and
bum on that
sometimes it's like we always have problems when teams put 6 players in, because your 6th marker is always small. You have to take a 6th marker off the post. That's the only place you can find them.
Yeah.
So there's different things that teams do, and it gives you problems. And I think that whilst we didn't see anything really creative maybe in terms of what teams did, I do think that coaches are thinking a lot about how they set their teams up and how many players they put in the box and that type of thing to give the opposition
even how quickly they deepen, because we've done where they've got their zonal, you could have 6 to 8 players.
Yeah.
And if they deepen late, try to deepen late, we'll use 2 players to try and, there's one of them, but just use 2 players to try and stop them deepening. And they'll get a late runner and just try, just
yeah,
wee
look
things
at
like
the
that.
goal. Look at the goal of the
But
first goal.
takes hours.
Yeah,
Michael.
Mandzukic's own goal in the final.
Yeah.
Look how deep Croatia are. It's.
And I know we're having a laugh about the delivery, Matt, but the delivery, he could deliver, Michael could deliver. And it's like, you can set all this up and do hours, and you can, your taker can either get 3/4 of them spot on, or go the other way and get, a quarter of them where it's just, well, the 3/4 are a nightmare and they don't hit the area. So all your preparation
I
goes
watched a lot of
out
the championship last year, and hey, the lad Barry Douglas has gone to Wolves, Scottish. Like, his delivery's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's such a big part of what Wolves were the best team in the championship by a distance in terms of their quality of the play, but because they had so much possession and they were so good on the ball, they got so many free kicks. He would just come up and he would just whip balls into the area, consistently into the area. It just puts you under pressure all the time. There's a delivery.
Okay, just another example, another left back. Unfortunately, another good left back. That
4 left backs across our back 4.
What can we take heart from them from the World Cup? We've seen a nation the size of Croatia getting to the final. You look at Uruguay as well. You look at what Scotland now. We all know we've not been there for 20 years. You guys have been part of it and nearly got the country there. You look at Northern Ireland. They've even got a smaller pool, smaller nation to pick from. But can we take heart in any way as our nation from what we just watched there in Russia?
You've always got hope, and then you could get a couple of stars coming through as well. I think these teams like Croatia have got certainly Perisic and Modric. They've got a few stars, Mandzukic. We're hoping to get that, and then get a few good ones coming through on top of it, get a structure. It's getting easier to qualify, but we still can't seem to make it just now. But
there's always been a big emphasis on grassroots, that we need to sort out at grassroots level, give the younger generation an opportunity to try and learn football and become more technical. But I just wondered, maybe 25, 30 years ago, did the likes of Rakitic and Modric, did they, were their grassroots excellent to make them World Cup stars? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I always think that you'll always get a blend, you'll always get a mix of players coming through. Then you'll get your Tierney's, you'll get your Modric, you'll get someone that's going to come through and you think, yeah, he can, your Robertsons, he can go and play Champions League football, he can go and play top 6 English Premier League. I don't think it's anything to do with grassroots. I just think that there's, for the majority of the 90%, that needs to be a structure that's in place, but you'll always get a few stars that come through that are above and beyond everything that you've done there coaching-wise.
Sometimes there's always hope, wasn't it?
You said there, though, that there's signs that we can be optimistic. So what signs in particular are you talking about that makes you believe that we are going to be at Euro 2020?
Well, just if we can, I like McKenna coming through because we had to find. It's like the left back situation where we never had a left back for a long time. Then suddenly get Robertson and Tierney coming through. We need another centre half. I think McKenna's going in the right direction. A bit like Stones, but he's more physical than Stones. I'm not saying he's up there in that kind of pedigree either yet. But the signs are good. We've always needed centre halves.
You're looking at a McKenna-Mulgrew partnership or something? Is that what you think at the moment?
Charlie,
I think
Charlie, Charlie's no, for the future. He's been a great player. Took him to Dundee United. It's funny because we always played Charlie as a wing back because you're talking about delivery, Michael, incredible. And if you'd have said to me 10 years ago, Charlie will play centre half, I said no chance because he would admit himself he wasn't the best defensively, but with experience he's gained that. Now he could help, but I'd like to see another McKenna coming through. I think if we get two strong for the future centre halves, we've got a real opportunity because we've got some good players, maybe no big names, but good players. And it's getting easier to qualify. I think it's coming. I think the qualification's coming.
Well, we might have you guys were goal scorers for Scotland and at club level. And if you take it, Lee Griffiths, if he's fit, he's the number one striker. But is there a concern if Lee Griffiths isn't fit? And let's bear in mind we're 4 weeks away from Scotland's first game. Where is our other number 9? Where are the goals coming from?
Yeah.
No, McBurney's pushing, but he is a target man. He holds the ball up. At the international level, he missed a few. I don't think his confidence is quite there yet to score international level, but I think he's a good player and with experience he could come on as well. But I'd like to see another outstanding goal scorer, somebody like Griffiths who can get you something from nothing, because we might need that as a nation.
That's what you do need.
I think we are actually. You know, when you look across the midfield, you've got obviously Armstrong, you've got McGregor, James Forrest, Tierney, Robertson. You've got young poachers coming through at Hibs. You've got
McTominay at Man United.
You know, you've got a young group of players. You know, you talk about England going in there, no expectation, young squad. You ain't got the likes of Scholes, Beckham. I can't say Giggs there. Beckham, Scholes. You've got Lampard, Gerrard. You didn't know where to play everyone. I think the Scotland team now, you're actually thinking, we've got an half decent bit of balance at the minute. Get a decent centre forward.
I think Scotland's challenge is a bit. They have a lot of potentially good international players, but we don't know if they're good international players yet because they haven't played enough. Yeah. If you look at Stuart Armstrong, he's got 7 caps, I think, 4 caps maybe. John McGinn, 5 caps. You know, so you go in and play, for example, Slovakia. Slovakia have a midfield that'll have 65 caps. Hamsic, 90 caps. They have experienced players. That's one of the things that we have in our squad. We have players like Stuart Armstrong, I think, is the same age as Ollie Norwood. Ollie Norwood has 55 caps. Stephen Davis is the same age as Scott Brown. Stephen Davis has 105 caps. So, and Scott Brown was a major player for Scotland with 50 odd caps. I think that sometimes you dilute. You know, you talk about all these players, and they almost they spread the caps out amongst too many players, and then you lack a little bit of experience. And the players that you mention are all potentially good international players. But when it comes around to 2020 and qualification, Scotland don't even know their group. They're going to have to go in and play. So John McGinn might have to go in and play against Hamsik, who's a top international player for Slovakia. He might have to go in and play, you know, against it's Dederin, who plays for Czech Republic. 60, 70 caps, plays in Serie A. It's a big jump up in international. That's the one thing. It's a huge jump in international football. And even England, like you talk about, England were young, but Dele Alli's got over 30 caps. You know, there wasn't that many. You know, Sterling has quite. You know, Sterling must be 25, 30 caps at this point in time. Yeah. They've played, and that side of things as well.
I'm just thinking, like, you know, Championship, World Cups, Euros. They've not got that experience. You know, they have played through the qualifications, but it's a different buzz. It's a different feeling when it's a knockout.
And it's a big jump. I say, like the Celtic players who are playing Champions League, it's a massive jump to come. And if you're playing for, you know, potentially, you know, an Aberdeen or a Hearts or whoever it may be, and then you go and start to play international football, it's a big jump. Sometimes you look at the teams that the opposition are playing, you go, you know, I think Slovakia, when we looked at their squad, we played them before the Euros, they had something like 6 players in Serie A. You know, Fiorentina's, the Juventuses, they have top players playing at top clubs. You might not know them all, and that's a big challenge. But Scotland have some, I think, really good potentially international players. It's whether, what happens, where's the next phase of that, what's the next phase for John McGinn?
Give them the best chance.
What's
by
the
getting
next
games into
phase for McKenna? Because you have to look at who he plays against week in, week out domestically and go, actually now, so you take McKenna and say you're playing against Mandzukic. It's a different ball game from what he plays domestically here as well.
See on that, I mean, obviously you were linked the Scotland job could have been yours, Michael, if you wanted it. We'll not get into that, but did you have a bit of sympathy? Alec McLeish was in the role at the end of season tour to Mexico and Peru. You've taken your team in the end of season tours to Chile, as you were speaking about earlier. You were away again. I think you only had one or two call-offs, whereas you look at Alec just in the door, try to get things right. We've not qualified for 20 years, and 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 call-offs. I know you were concentrating on Ireland, but do you have a bit of sympathy for him? Because your boys give you an excellent attendance record.
I think it's difficult. As an international manager, you've only got, I think you've 5 international windows. You give September, October, November, March, and then the summer. So if your players don't make themselves available or they're not available, then you've got 4. It's not an awful lot of time to get stuff better in. It was difficult. I sympathise also with the Celtic situation where they're coming back so much earlier, but as well. So I think that I always look and we had this discussion with our players, and I remember when I took the job, there was a lot of players that would go, I'm not going on that tour, I'm not going, and that attitude changed within our squad. And I remember we played Portugal, and it was Ronaldo's 100th cap. He was 28. And I remember saying to the players, well, there's a reason why he keeps turning up. You don't get 100 caps at 28 because you choose your games. You're there consistently all the time. And that's something that I think, it's very, very important. That exposure. I felt sometimes players, and I think, well, if you're a player and you've not got 10 international caps, why would you not be busting to go on that tour to South America to play? That's your chance. Sometimes players are discovered on tours like that. And I think it was important for those players because you get good exposure. They're playing against 2 teams that are going to the World Cup. They're playing, and that's something that I think, that maybe mindset needs to change a little bit as well. I think, Alec, that was difficult. You could tell by obviously the players that were calling in and the players that were dropping out. It was difficult, but you come in now, it's competitive games. September, and you're going to have to turn a team around in 4 or 5 days. It's not an easy job.
Just in terms of 2020, just to touch on it briefly, as a Northern Ireland manager, you get a quiet confidence that you guys will be there at the tournament?
It's difficult to make that.
You signed a new long-term contract now. You've got to get there.
We don't know the draw yet, so that's one thing that you have to be careful about. I think when you've been there and you believe you can go there, our biggest challenge will be, it's a little bit, it's similar to the Scotland thing. We need to hold on to our experienced players. So even like the likes of Macaulay, Evans, Cathcart, Davis, they're going to be massive for us in this campaign again. And then the players that we have coming in, like Jordan Jones at Kilmarnock, we're going to have, he's a player, like Jordan's played 2 times at international level.
Just like one of those players you were talking about.
We got fast track him up.
Yeah.
He needs to come in and be able to play for us at a high level. Now, I gave him his debut with 20 minutes to go in the World Cup playoff, and he came on and he looked like he could handle it, to be fair to him. But, that's the scenario. Our players don't get a really bedding in period. They're going to come in and they're going to have to be up to it. The other side of that is we will give Jordan opportunities. If he comes in and plays badly twice, we won't go, we'll pick someone else instead of him. He'll get his chance because we don't have the resource to continually, play. And that's, I think, sometimes when you talk about McGeoch, McGinn, Kenny McLean, you can spread 20 caps out amongst 4 players and then they all have 5, as opposed to having 1 player with 20. And that's kind of where I think sometimes you have to, the job, sometimes choice can give you difficulties as much as, making the job easier.
And there's 2 Scotsmen who have been involved in the national team didn't quite get to major tournaments, but played a part in nearly doing so. Just quite do you have optimism for Alec and the squad that finally we're going to be, particularly when you've got games at Hampden and the tournament's going to be in our own doorstep 2 years from now?
I did the qualification the last time. I think it was 2000, was it? So I was in squads. I just never get picked to go to the final. Just a bit early for me. So, but it's 1998, I think it was. Anyway, it's getting easier. That's what we've said. It's getting easier, and if we take Michael's suggestions about how Northern Ireland have done so well and maybe get experience into players. I can see them having the right mindset. He's talked about Jordan Jones. I think McKenna's got that mindset, so you can go and find players like that. You've got your stars like Robertson, Tierney. So, and as I say, the most important thing is getting these. There's better opportunities for us. I've got a feeling we're going to qualify this time. I really do. We've said that a lot, but it's there for us. I think it is there. It'll be difficult, but it's there.
As the first step, then, Billy, although it doesn't guarantee qualification, but to know that we're heading in the right direction under Alex, that we top this group with Israel and Albania between now and the end of November.
I think we've got to set our stall out and make sure we do that, because that's one of the opportunities, and it's against all internationals are hard. Trust me, we've all been there. You don't get easy teams.
But looking at Israel and Albania,
it's a great opportunity. We've got to set our stall out.
Albania got it. We're in France.
They've had some good results.
And Albania have been quite clever in terms of how they've exploited eligibility.
Not a great place to
found a
go
lot
and
of
play
players
either.
with Albanian eligibility as well, which is a big thing, and they've got stronger as a result of that. I think it's very difficult for any of the small nations. You have the top nations who will qualify, and then you have about 30 countries. And Scotland are in that, Northern Ireland are in that, Republic of Ireland, Wales are in that. And sometimes the draw can be kind to you and sometimes it can't. I think it's very important if you're, and I imagine Scotland, like us, will probably be a pot 3 team, that the quality of your pot 2 team and the quality of your pot 4 team can be a big significance, and even your pot 5 team. You know, like I always say to our players, because if you're a group of 6, if you beat the 2 bottom teams home and away, you've got 12 points. You only need 5-6 points from the rest of the games to be in the mix.
It's good
You only need that. So you have to find, where do you get your other points from? You know what we were finding in the first campaign, we would take points off Russia and Portugal and dropping points to Luxembourg and Azerbaijan. So if you can get that and get that momentum, and the other thing is the first 4 games is key. If you can get 7 points in the first 4 games, the media will be positive.
Did you ever show your players that, Michael? Because I know at club level we showed targets, and then you would reevaluate after the first couple of months and peel it back and say, right, we've got to start again.
We showed the players, the first campaign that I was in, and we won 1 game out of the 10. We drew 5 and we lost 4. So we actually finished 5th in the group. It was a tough group with Russia and Portugal. So we showed the players the 10 games, but we were never beaten easily. We showed them the 10 games with the score at 70 minutes. And with the score at 70 minutes, we had 16 points at that time. And at 90 minutes, we had 7 points. It was actually 1. And so we showed them that they weren't as far away. Yeah. And in the next campaign, we went out and won our first 3 games with 9 points. We lost away in Romania, and then we came and beat Finland, and then we had 12 points out of 15. But they see that period from November to March, our media were so positive. Everyone believed we had a chance of qualifying. When I looked at the previous campaign for Scotland, unfortunately, I think Scotland had 4 points from the first 4 games. Yeah. They lost to England, they lost away to Slovakia, and then suddenly the media's negative from November to March. It's a different mindset, and that's a big part of it as well.
Your targets have got to be realistic, because if you install that into your players, if you peel a target setback and you're saying we'll get these amount of points against good teams, they're looking at it as if you're crazy. But if you're realistic, the boys will buy into it, and then, as you say, the media will be behind you as well, so it can drive you forward.
We set them out before this World Cup, first 4 games, minimum 7 points, or minimum 6, can we get 7? And in those 4 games, we were away to Czech Republic and away to Germany. We won our 2 home games, we had 7 points, and then we beat Norway game 5, we're in 10 points, everyone's in something, we can get the World Cup. And it can, whereas the mindset and everything that's around it, I always think that players are a little bit more suspect to criticism at international level, because it's such a personal thing to come and play. I think when you're criticised playing at international level, it hurts you more than when you play at your club. I do actually think, and I think players take it more personally, so creating that kind of positivity around it is a big part of it as well.
Well, let's hope that Northern Ireland and Scotland are at Euro 2020 on our doorstep. Let's hope that they get through the qualification campaign. Delighted to say we're on the Open Goal coaching sessions. I'm Mark Guidi. I'm here with Mike O'Neill, Kris Commons and Billy Dodds. We're going to just finish off the last 10-12 minutes of the programme talking about our own domestic managers. The season's just underway, a lot of optimism, some new guys on the block. Michael, you look at the top flight first of all and you see 4 guys from Northern Ireland. There's Brendan Rodgers, there's Neil Lennon, there's Tommy Wright, there's Stevie Robinson. Yeah. There's the success of yourself as well. What's kind of happened to Northern Ireland in the past decade or so to have all these managers doing so well?
Yeah, I don't think it is coincidence. There's no. We can't put that down to anything other than really like poor coaches in Scotland, like Billy and that. But no, I mean it's purely down to that is purely coincidence, really. And I look at how look at Tommy and look at Stephen. They were both really assistant coaches. And got the opportunity to be managers and have done extremely well. Brendan, we know, has come and worked his way through in his pedigree and what he's done down south and what he's done up here has been fantastic. And Lenny, as again, from Celtic to have the experience at Bolton and redoing and rebuilding himself at Hibs has been brilliant as well. I don't think there's anything really, they're all different as well. The four guys aren't, like Stephen Robinson's a really good coach, as is Brendan Rodgers. Tommy's more of a manager, and Lenny are more managers, I think, than that. So there's different skill sets within the four guys. I think that one thing I'll say, they've all got a lot of common sense. Four of them, do you know what I mean? And I think you see that in terms of how they manage their clubs, how they set up their teams. But there's no we don't have some sort of magical coaching factory back in Belfast that we're producing managers.
You've got Tommy Wright being a goalkeeper, haven't you? Well, I say you got Tommy Wright being a goalkeeper. Neil Lennon has had all the experience of playing down in the English Premier League, playing for Celtic. And you've got Brendan Rodgers that's never really kicked a ball professionally. Yeah, but all comes together that. Yeah, they're all. I
think you get phases, don't you? I think in the Premier League or down in England, it was Scottish managers.
You had it, exactly, yeah. Well, at one point in the Premier League, you had seven Premier League, there's not even 7 British managers in the Premier League now. Yeah. And you had 7 Scottish managers, and that's not that long ago. I remember doing my coaching badges and David Moyes coming up as manager at Everton and different people coming up and talking about the influence of the Scottish coaches and the Scottish managers in the English game at that point in time. And unfortunately, it doesn't exist at this minute in time. Do
you have a good rapport? The Northern, I mean, you live in Edinburgh. All the Northern Ireland, are you in contact at all? Is there a good rapport?
I speak to them. Yeah, them all really. They're all. They all sometimes they'll speak to me about players and different things as well. Yeah, but no, they're all. You want to see them all do well, and they have. As I say, it was good for me. I was really pleased for Stephen because he had a difficult time down in Oldham, and you can go into a job. And it's just not the right job. You've been there, Billy, you know what I mean?
Spoke to him when he was manager, and he was like, things that were going on there, but can happen at clubs, we'll not get into it, but he was pulling his hair out, and then suddenly it's about getting that opportunity we're talking about, because it comes back up.
Lenny at Bolton,
assistant at Rotherham.
You walk into the wrong job and you probably know, this club's not right.
Is that what you thought when you went to Scotland?
I never walked through the door.
We'll get into the Beacon years. We don't want to get into the Beacon.
We've got an Englishman who's Scottish and an Irishman who's really Scottish.
In terms of that, Billy, you've coached and managed now for a decade or so. You know the standards up here. You know what it takes to go and win a game. You know the pressures. Stephen Gerrard's a new kid in the block, a lot of focus on him because he's now managing Glasgow Rangers. How is he going to find it over the coming weeks and months?
I think he started off pretty well. Listen, we all know he's got a focus, you can see it already. He knows what he wants, but he's still got to say, he's new to the game as a manager. He'll be learning things every day. We all still do. Don't care if you've been in football how many years. You learn every day and you learn something different every day. He'll have standards. They've started pretty well. I think building momentum and confidence throughout his team. But there are going to be times where he's going to be tested. I'm intrigued to see. Obviously, my agent Struan is Stephen Gerrard's agent, and I want him to do well. But I'm intrigued to see when it's in the heat of the battle and there might be a couple of goals down and see where he goes there because he'll be learning. But I think he knows what he wants to do, and I think he'll do pretty well. But the pressure potty up here is incredible. What's expected? I mean, you see when it doesn't work out for Pedro Casinha and you're gone. And I don't think that will happen to Stephen Gerrard. But I still see Rangers being a good bit short for Celtic yet, so it'll be testing times ahead. But when there are testing times, you learn. That's when you do learn. It's okay winning games. Winning games is the easiest thing in the world as a coach. It's when things are going against you on a game basis, 90 minutes, and fixing a club, making a club better again once it's it's not working.
He's already
That's the
shown
difficult
signs of
part of coaching
frustration.
and management.
And you know Brendan Rodgers. You were there in his first season when Celtic swept the Boars. Do you think that Brendan will be absolutely relishing the fact that Steven Gerrard, you know, the kind of teacher and pupil, if you like, in terms of having him at Liverpool, that would have given Brendan even more of a surge to go on again and do well this season?
I would find it remarkable if it hasn't given him that little buzz inside his stomach. I think as a manager, if you've seen your pupil coming through and wanting to compete against you, you'd like to think that you were still the master. But I think in terms of Steven Gerrard, he's going to find it frustrating. And already seen through the results, you know, he's kept a lot of clean sheets, not conceded many goals. But he spoke about the attacking options, the lack of threat that they're posing, the mentality side of things. It's going to change everything about the mental side of things going into games and around the club. He wants winners. He wants people that want to drive through the gates and be determined, will to win. Everything that he had in abundance as a player. One thing I think, like you said, Dodds, there about the Glasgow atmosphere, it's like a goldfish bowl. You know, a couple of losses and a cup defeat, there will be chinks in the armour, and that's when testing times, especially as a young manager, that you keep your core, your group together and try and keep it pretty safe. That's one thing that Brendan Rodgers were excellent at. Superb domestically, European, beat 6, beat 5, got beat off the Gibraltar team as well. And I was at home watching it and thinking, oh my life, this is gonna, this is explode. Neil Lennon, door's gonna be off the hinges. So I said to the boys, he went real calm. Listen, no problem, it's fine. Got back home, get on the training ground, everything's fine. And I thought that's incredible to be beat by part-timers and still have that level of calmness. It's a long-term project. And you've seen Brendan Rodgers towards the start of last season about how his team are more improved, they're a better unit, they understand everything better, even though they were obviously unbeaten in the first season. He felt that his team were in a better place when everyone else were questioning whether are they playing as good football. I think he's very, 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 very clever.
That comes from having experience again, being in that situation. That's one thing Steven Gerrard will not have in terms of when it goes wrong, how they handle the players. Modern day players are incredible. We come through some of the hardest managers, Michael, Gordon Wallace, Jim McLean, John Blackley, people like that who it was the old school, and you just can't do it now. You can't do it now. Yep. It's eggshells round players, and it's about giving them confidence. And if you it used to be, you would get barracked all the time, and you would get a wee pat in the back maybe 10% of the time, if that. Now, if you don't get them, 90% pat in the back and 10% barrack, you could lose your players, and that's what I've found right away. And we were always like confidence. It's good that you say that about handling situations, about rookie manager when they get beaten. Will Steven Gerrard be able to say that? It
depends if you're a coach. You mentioned that, didn't you? About the Northern Irish managers. Are you going to be a coach? Which Brendan Rodgers, he takes his session out. He sat around the table. He'll set everything out like this, and everyone knows what's happening. Managers like Lennon and probably Tommy Wright, they're the ones that will walk down a corridor with you. Morning, boss. Like, Jesus, I'm on my toes now. I'm in his bad books. Else I'm not playing Saturday. And then the week after, he'll go, how you doing? You all right? Good week? Yeah, fine, yeah. Oh, mate, good books again. I might be playing. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It kept you so much on your toes, whereas Brendan, how's your family? What's the missus been up to? Are you training? Are you feeling all right? Back all right? Yeah, right. Everything was just perfect.
Mm-hmm. But that's what I'm saying. He's gone through that situation.
Yeah, which one you're going to be?
Losing big games, and if you look back how close Liverpool were to winning that league, how did they handle that?
I think Gerrard will do well. I genuinely do. I don't know. There's something
standards.
Something I just see in him. I think
steely determination.
Gary Mack as well.
I know Gary.
Gary's with him, and
he's brought his team as well. Yeah. He's brought his team from Liverpool, which I think he's tried to create what Brendan's created at Celtic. That tight team around him as well. There will be challenges for him. There's no doubt. Again, he's recruiting. Brendan didn't have to recruit too much because he actually made the biggest success has been the players that were already there. He's made them better. Yep. Steven Gerrard's slightly different. He has to recruit, so there's going to be things that will go wrong within that recruitment as well. But I don't know, and I think his biggest challenge possibly will be, because he was such a top player, and what he'll want and what he'll expect is, he'll want the players, as a manager, you want the players to get to that level. He might have to come back to the players a bit. He might have to come back to them and say, look...
He'll still be the best player there. He'll see the passes.
He'll have to sort of say, look, OK, I'm asking them...
Get frustrated.
You have to... Sometimes you have to accept that players just can't do things.
You've got to rein yourself in.
You've got to say that he's not going to be able to do that. And as much as you want your team to play like that, and you know that can be one of the frustrations in it as well. But I don't know. I think like how he's come up and how he's handled things. You know, I think it's been great for the game up here, and you know, I expect him to do well.
We've given the Northern Ireland coaches and managers enough praise in the past hour. Let's not forget last season, 3 Scottish managers finished in the top 6. Derek McInnes, Craig Levine and Steve Clark. How good are we at the moment in terms, how well off are we just now in terms of good Scottish managers and coaches as well? When you worked with Jim McIntyre as well, we hope Jim's back in the game soon enough too. You look at Martin Canning, what he produces at Hamilton year in, year out. Where are we just now?
Still, you need opportunities. There's a lot of good Scottish coaches. We're talking about the Irish coaches getting their time just now and they're all doing well, but there's a lot of good Scottish coaches as well in terms of what they want to do, how they want to structure their club, how they want to play their football. It's still there, you just need that opportunity. And I think Steve Clark getting that opportunity, coming up the road after the jobs that he's had, and Commander being a little bit in disarray over the years, can't really get started, and then suddenly they put a man in there who's got a bit of experience, knows the way he wants to play, knows that he's not got the best players, the best group of players, but he structures them, and realising what kind of club we talked about at the World Cup, what is my club, where are we, what kind of level are we, and gets a bit of organisation, and suddenly they go and win games where I saw them a lot last year. They didn't play well in every game, but they dug in and they knew they were hard to beat, and they nicked points out and that built momentum and confidence.
Beat Celtic, beat Rangers.
Yeah.
And then they did play well in games.
Steve Clark's a typical example of someone that went in. Like, you look at the players that Steve Clark has worked with as a coach, the clubs he's been at and the players he's worked with and managed in the Premier League. But he didn't come in and try and manage Kilmarnock like a Premier League
It's a bit like Stephen Gerrard with Rangers, what you were talking about.
He went, right, he didn't come in and overcomplicate it for the players. He never seemed to get frustrated with the players. I think one interview he got frustrated. They lost goals. I thought that's the first time I've seen him sort of go. You could tell that annoyed him. But he created the right kind of atmosphere and he made the players better. Now, it's only been over a short period of time, but he made them better without going in and blinding them, I'm sure, with like, this is what we do in the Premier League, or this is what, when I was with Zola, we were doing this, or
when I've seen Steve Clark, I says, it's a remarkable job you've been doing. What's your secret? He says, you know what, I just keep it simple. And that's it.
It's realisation, it is, Chris. It's realisation of what you've got and not expecting too much. And if you can show them a decent bunch of players who are hard working, that you can coach and you know how to structure teams and organise, they'll respond to you.
In terms of Derek McInnes, just to finish off the programme, I mean, Derek's been at Aberdeen now 5 years, second place. He keeps it going, he loses players, he's beaten off the challenge of Rangers as well to finish second. He's also won a cup. How much respect and admiration do you have for a guy like Derek for what he's done?
Derek's done great. You know, again, typically he loses his best player. Arguably Kenny McLean's gone, you know what I mean? He has to find a way to replace him. He lost Hayes, he lost McGinn. He's constantly fighting, you know what it's like, Billy, and yet, he's managed to find the likes of McKenna coming into the squad. Some of his loans were good, some of them didn't maybe work out as well as what he'd hoped for. But again, I think Aberdeen are starting to look strong again. You know what I mean? He's had to freshen his team up. And again, I think they got to a point, Aberdeen as well, where how do you improve the team? When they were at their best, I thought when Hayes and McGinn were there, Rooney was at, so where do you go, where can you find a player? Because you can't pay him. You can't pay him enough to get him there, so that's your challenge as a manager. And I think he's come through that period again, and I think Aberdeen, based on how their performance against Burnley and that there, they can be exciting again this year.
Yeah, it is a rebuilding process, and like you say about McLean leaving, you've obviously got arguably one of the best players last season in Ryan Christie, so he's lost him as well. But it's a completely rebuilding process in that final third, because lost Rooney as well.
I think that's one of the challenges all the Scottish managers face. Like Lenny's been talking about it, he's lost quality. But when you bring players in, and they have to do it, and Billy, when you bring loan players in that realistically you can't sign, then you have to find another loan player of the same quality.
Yeah.
You know, so if you lose a really good loan player, you know, how do you replace him? Now, Celtic don't look as if Patrick Roberts they're going to miss him too much. You know what I mean? But based on his first season, you thought, well, how do we replace him if we bring him back in? Yeah. You know, it's quite that's a big challenge, and you can sometimes, you know, loans are great, but they're sometimes a short-term option if it's a player that you can't sign.
Recruitment and sustaining it's huge. I mean, we lost Jackson Irvine and Liam Boyce.
Liam Boyce, yeah.
And we found it hard to replace. And it was a bit like Dundee with Hemmings and Stewart when they were there. Yeah. So that's a provincial club. So that's why you've got to give Derek McInnes so much credit. I know the way he works. You get different styles of managers. Derek loves to make it difficult for the opponents, not give in and away. And if they play with confidence, they'll have a little bit of flair as well. But he'll build from the back. But for him to turn over those players that you're talking about losing and continually finish second, and it was amazing last year. The cup run got Derek a bit of stick, and I can understand Aberdeen fans are realistic. They know you can win a cup, it's your best chance, and that's why they were so disappointed. But to finish second again before Rangers, but Neil Lennon, quite rightly so, was getting praise. Stephen Clark was getting praise. There's a lot of the teams getting praise. Where Derek was getting stick and he was going to finish second again was absolutely incredible.
Well, they went and turned Celtic over for last game.
The last game.
And they were disappointed with the semi-final, but the suspensions hurt them in the semi. It wasn't an Aberdeen team that you saw playing. I was at the game. It didn't look like an Aberdeen player because of the suspensions and that they have. But again, it is that recruitment. Like, so you lose Liam Boyce, you know. It's 20 goals at your team. Where do you get 20 goals just like that?
Well, he was the top scorer in the Premier League, and that was including Celtic, Rangers and Aberdeen.
2 seasons ago, Aberdeen had Danny Warden goal. He's just moved for £12 million.
Yeah.
You know, where do you find a £12 million goalkeeper in the SPL? You know, it doesn't exist. So that's the challenge that all the managers face. That's why I have so much admiration for the guys up here, because they're working so hard. They work so hard. I don't think people realise, supporters realise how hard these guys work. To get players to keep their teams at the level they do. I bet people have no idea how hard Martin Canning works. Maybe to find a good player at £800 a week. That's an unbelievable job to continually do that, to continually keep your team in the league and continually do that. It's an unbelievably hard job to do that.
That's why you just stay in charge of the
it's
Island
6 games a year.
Only gets the pressure now and again.
6 games a year is enough.
Gives you time to come and join us here. Listen, we've had a great 70 minutes on the coaching sessions. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm Mark Guidi. Thank you very much to Michael O'Neill, to Kris Commons and to Billy Dodds for joining us. We hope it's a good season ahead domestically and of course for the national team for Northern Ireland and for Scotland. We'll see you again soon. Take care.